In Life is Strange Double Exposure, you have a major choice to make
Interesting call.
when Loretta is pestering you.
I'll just go interview Dr. Hunter instead. I'm sure we'd have a lot to talk about.
Do you answer her questions or do you call her bluff? Now, this choice affects so many things throughout chapter 1 to 5. All the chapters, there's something going on. So I want to look at every single consequence here for each of these choices so you can make an informed decision on your next playthrough of Life is Strange Double Exposure.
Wow.
Let's get started with answer her questions. So right away, there's obviously going to be some immediate dialogue.
I'm not, aware of Safi using her mom's position like that. Not on purpose, for sure.
Just accidental nepotism. Gotcha. Think it was enough to piss somebody off? Seems like Safi rubbed a few people the wrong way.
How should I know? Go talk to somebody who's been here longer than 6 months.
Got any suggestions? Names?
And at this point, Max has another choice. Which lead do you give Loretta? If you pick Dr. Hunter, it'll go like this.
Dr. Hunter was Safi's mentor. They spent months working together.
If you pick Vin Lang, it'll go like this.
I've got a hunch Vin Lang knows a lot more than he's letting on.
And if you pick President Fayad, it'll go like this.
Safi's mom keeps tabs on everything at Caledon, including her daughter.
And then the conversation continues regardless of your choice here.
Interesting. Good lead. That'll do for now, I think. Thanks, Miss Caulfield.
Screw you too.
Now, this might seem like an odd thing to do, but just go with me here. You'll see later. If you chose answer her questions and then you look at Gwen's door after you talk to Loretta, Max will think this.
Didn't catch much of Gwen's phone call thanks to Loretta. Maybe something in here could tell me more.
Now, still in the same chapter, after you talk to Moses, then the two of you go outside and start looking at Lucas giving a speech, you're going to see a text from Loretta pop here. If you chose answer her questions, the text will go like this. Thanks again, Miss Caulfield, for answering my questions. And then Max can reply with either a, helpful comment, sure thing. Anytime, Loretta. Really? You mean that? It's just an expression. Or make it clear right from the beginning by saying it's a one-off. Don't get used to it. Hey, I'll take what I can get. Good, because that's all I have. She is a student, though. I feel like there could be a little bit better of a way to handle it. I don't know. And then regardless of which one you chose there, Max will think this after reading the texts.
No way answering the nosy kid reporter's questions will come back to bite me.
And the third page of the end screen of chapter 1, the Loretta section, of course, will say answer her questions, but also Loretta is pleasantly surprised you answered her questions. So Loretta's pleasantly surprised. She's not expecting people to actually help her, it seems, right? And that seems kind of obvious throughout the game. But that also means that maybe some things in the future are affected differently because she got support from you, how she approaches stories. So that's really interesting. Now, Max is going to have some feelings about the interaction and need to write it down in her journal. That won't pop until the next scene. So that means you're in chapter 2, scene 1. The first, second, and fourth paragraphs here are always the same if you chose to answer her questions. The third one changes depending on which lead you gave her. This little shit Loretta thinks she's Geraldo. What college student goes to this length to get a scoop? Maybe I shouldn't have said anything. If you chose Dr. Hunter, Gwen, now Gwen's liable to get stalked by this kid. If you chose Vin, although a showdown between Vin and Loretta might be worth seeing. And if you chose President Fayad, I could see the headline now, President Fayad identified by anonymous source as a suspect in her child's death. Fuck me. So it seems like the only one that Max doesn't regret would be if she suggested Vin as a lead. And then regardless of which one, the journal entry always ends like this. Gwen was still acting shady as hell. There could be something there. Now the differences between these three leads continues in Crosstalk later. Note this overall for all crosstalk throughout the game. Sometimes certain messages don't pop at the exact same time. It's kind of confusing, but the way that I believe the game is coded is when you're at a certain location and you arrive at a certain place, depending on which timeline you are, and then how many times you switch back and forth, it all affects what can actually display when, just based on when the code is triggered to show those messages. So I'm going to say what scenes I find them in, but if you don't find these crosstalk messages in those scenes. That's why. Long explanation necessary? I don't know. Here's the consequences. So if you chose Dr. Hunter as the lead, Gwen will post this in Chapter 2, Scene 5.
Oh, shit. This is because I told Loretta to look into Gwen, isn't it?
I can't believe I have to say this, but please do not ask me prying questions about Safi just because she was one of my students. That's fucked up. Alistair says, absolutely correct. I'm sorry, Dr. Hunter. Vin, you could just tag Loretta. We all know you're talking about her. Loretta says, and? Oh, this is your administration and teachers you're talking to. She's got guts. Reggie says, okay, Lo, let's sit down and have a drink and I will explain why this is so bad because I want to believe you didn't mean it. I like their friendship. It's like unexpected and I like it. Now, if you chose Vin for your lead, I found his post in Chapter 3, Scene 1 when you're examining the evidence.
Shit. This is because I told Loretta to look into Vin when she cornered me in the fab, isn't it?
Does anyone know how to brick someone's phone remotely so they stop texting you? Asher says, no, but I could brick it with my hands if you want. Vin, that's so unsubtle. And I love how Loretta's actually responding to these people. If you just responded, I wouldn't need to keep texting you. Vin, you see this, right? Lois fucking Lane is beating down my digital door. Diamond just laughs. I mean, what else can you do right here? And if you chose President Fayad,
I told Loretta to look into Yasmin when she cornered me in the fab. Loretta, what did you do?
just because I'm the president of Caledon does not also mean I owe anyone, especially members of my own Caledon community, private information about my daughter. I will not say this again, Lucas well said. Loretta, I really am sorry. I didn't mean to upset you by asking questions. Finally, Loretta, some remorse or understanding? Rebecca says, oh great, the just asking questions girl has logged on. I'm not just asking questions. I'm trying to communicate information about an issue that affects us all. Rebecca says, sure. I get what you're doing. You gotta learn tact. All right, let's continue. Now here comes a series of dialogue differences when you're talking to Gwen in her office in chapter 3. If you answered Loretta's questions, Gwen never realizes that Max is snooping, right? So you're on her good side still. When Max approaches Gwen, she'll respond like this.
Max, hey! To what do I owe the pleasure?
The conversation will continue nicely, and when Max starts asking questions...
I know you got Safi's book deal canceled.
Shit.
What I don't understand is why.
Gwen will say this.
Look, I don't know what I'm at liberty to tell you, but I'll do my best. What do you want to know?
The next series of questions is the same, whether you picked answer her questions or call your bluff, until you get to the part about incendiary content.
Safi's book was incendiary? How? What was it about?
If you chose answer her questions, Gwen will respond like this.
Forgive me for dancing around things. I wish I could be straight with you, really. How much did Safi tell you about Maya Okada?
And when Max asked to see Safi's manuscript...
Is that Safi's manuscript?
Oh, part of it. Why?
Can I read it?
Gwen's happy to let her see it.
Someone ought to.
Max looks at the manuscript right there in front of Gwen in the dead timeline. No problem.
Whatever happened with Maya was explosive.
Now, here's something interesting. I actually think there's an error here, because if you look at Gwen here, she's going to say this.
I said this conversation's over.
And that doesn't quite fit with the scenario, but it does fit with the call her bluff section, which you'll see later. I think these are swapped accidentally in the game code. But it actually really makes me laugh, because she's all like, yeah, happy to help, happy. And then she's like, where? Out of nowhere. But I truly think that these are just accidentally switched. Now, when you're in Gwen's office in the dead timeline, because that's where this choice, answer her questions or call your bluff, took place. So if you did anything in the living timeline, it wouldn't matter. But in the dead timeline, you have the option to take a snapshot of Gwen's record player.
Old school. Nice.
If you do, the post will be the same and start like this. Gwen, being a vinyl girly, feels incredibly on the nose, but the comments are different. So answering her questions lead to these comments. Is it an aesthetic if it's who you really are inside? I will not apologize. Alice, if you ever want to swap albums sometimes, let me know, Dr. Hunter. Gwen says, will do. Now, this seems so, basic and innocent, but you'll see what happens when we chose Call Her Bluff. The last consequence, if you chose Answer Her Questions, is actually about Loretta, and it's in the very last scene. Scene 5, you can talk to Loretta at the North Quad. Loretta may or may not have a change of heart about how she pursues her podcast stories.
Are you asking on the record?
By choosing Answer Her Questions, it's actually a little bit harder to get the change of heart ending. Now, I will definitely talk about how to get that ending in full in another video, but I wanted to let you know that this choice is related. And so there's a whole conversation that can be different, and also another optional snapshot where the comments are different depending on what that, result is. All right, let's take a look at Call Her Bluff now, starting with the immediate dialogue, which is very different.
You're bluffing. You were trying to listen in too. You said so yourself.
And then Loretta gets Gwen involved.
Oh, shit.
Hi, Professor. I just thought you might want to know that Miss Caulfield's been listening to your calls.
Loretta, I don't know how you have time to be a snitch when you still owe me revisions. Beat it. What a little shit. But she's not a liar. Anything you want to tell me, Max?
And then you could try to cover your tracks by responding to Gwen with, "You seemed upset earlier."
I wanted to check on you. You seemed so upset in the library earlier.
Max, I don't like to be pitied. And I like fake pity even less. Leave me alone.
Or, "I fucked up."
I'm sorry. I was being nosy. I don't know why. Probably just paranoid.
You think? Jesus, Max. Get your shit together.
Or, "I'm investigating the murder."
I'm trying to figure out what happened to Sophie, and I wanted your help.
Oh, you're a gumshoe now. Detective Caulfield on the case. Give me a fucking break.
Yeah, she definitely is not happy with you, and the conversation will always continue like this.
You know, I really thought we were cool. Just stay out of my way.
Fantastic. Anything else want to go wrong today? Might as well pack it all in at once.
And now when that conversation's done, when you look at her door, it makes a little bit more sense why we're doing that now. Like, we did answer her questions, but now we're actually at Gwen's door. When you look at it, Max will think this.
Gwen did just tell me to stay out of her way. Does that mean she really is up to something?
And just a note, if you open her door here, it's the same experience no matter what your choice is. It's just the looking that's different. Okay, so now you met with Moses. You might have gotten him his hot chocolate or not. You go outside, you hear Lucas's shenanigans, and then Loretta will text you. If you chose Call Her Bluff, she's going to text this instead. "Don't think I'll forget you trying to embarrass me in front of Dr. Hunter anytime soon, Miss Caulfield." You can either say, "Is that a threat?" "Are you threatening me, Loretta? In writing?" Perish the thought. This was simply an innocuous comment about how good my memory is. Nice save. Or come out and say it. "Tell me how you really feel, Loretta. Name the place. I've got nothing to hide, but you might." Calm down, Woodward and Bernstein. And then Max will always think this no matter which one you chose.
This kid, I swear to God.
And the page 3 Loretta end screen will, of course, read Call Her Bluff, but also shows how Loretta's feeling. Loretta feels vindictive that you called her bluff. Whoa. In chapter 2, scene 1, you have the opportunity to look at Max's journal entry about the situation, and because you chose Call Her Bluff this time, the opening and closing paragraphs are the same, and there's obviously not a third paragraph about a lead because you didn't give her one, but the second paragraph, wow, I'm making this really complicated, is a little bit different. I still don't know what's up with Gwen, and she probably hates me. And what does she mean, one snoop to another? I snoop for good. And of course, in whatever scenes they naturally come up, there are no extra crosstalk posts from Vin, from Gwen, or Yasmin about Loretta pestering them because you didn't give that lead, right? So there's nothing that replaces those either that I've found. So I looked at all of Loretta's posts and everyone else's posts, and they seem consistent regardless. So it just seems like there's just nothing there. Again, I'm making this more complicated than it needs to be. There's no extra post. That's it. Done. So we're in Gwen's office, but this time because you called Loretta's bluff and therefore she wasn't bluffing and you went up to Dr. Hunter, Gwen knows that you're a snoop now. So obviously she's not going to be too happy with you and not be so accommodating, shall we say? So when Max approaches her, she's going to say this instead.
Max. No conversations for you to conveniently overhear this time. Sorry to disappoint.
And then when Max starts asking questions,
Why?
Gwen will respond like this.
You really have a knack for learning shit you're not supposed to know, you know that?
So I've been told.
Well then. No use fighting the inevitable.
Eventually, Gwen will start answering questions anyway.
What do you want to know?
Until we get to the incendiary content question.
Safi's book was incendiary?
And this time, because she knows you're a snoop, she's going to say this.
How? What was it about?
You really don't have an off switch, do you?
She'll answer you anyway, though, but, not happy about it.
How much did Safi tell you about Maya Okada?
And that unhappiness really shows when you ask her to see Safi's manuscript.
Can I read it?
No. That's where I draw the line. I don't trust you not to dig up old graves. Jesus. I've spilled too much already. Let's call this conversation over. Huh?
Shit. Now I'm even more convinced there's something important in that manuscript.
Yeah, she straight shuts it down and you gotta find another way.
How do I get my hands on a copy?
So that means you need to shift into the living timeline right behind Gwen's back, I guess. And then fingers crossed is in that drawer that Gwen just put it in the dead timeline, in the living timeline. But guess what? It is, so you can look at it.
Gotcha.
And there's differences here, of course. You're looking at the manuscript in the living timeline. It's a little bit different of a background, that kind of a thing. But otherwise, it's the same.
Whatever happened with Maya was explosive.
But then if you look at Gwen in the dead timeline, this is the part where I think there's that error. She responds kind of nicely to you after she was so angry.
Please. No more questions, Max.
So if you think about the whole conversation, those definitely feel like they should be switched. And I tested this numerous times. It's always this kind of backwards way.
This conversation's over. No more questions, Max.
Simple coding error there. No big deal. But I love this. If you were to take that snapshot of Gwen's record player, again, the initial post is the same. Gwen being a vinyl girly feels incredibly on the nose, but the comments are definitely different and we get a little cameo here. Don't recall giving you permission to poke around my shit, Caulfield. Of course, Victoria. Classic Max, still going into people's rooms without asking. Okay, Victoria, it was only once, but possibly twice.
Victoria, of course.
You went into my room too, potentially, depending on choices in the original Life is Strange. Moving on. And then lastly, Loretta's ending. By calling her bluff, you actually have an easier time to get Loretta to have a change of heart. This, of course, affects the dialogue here as well as the snapshot, but it's not a direct one-to-one choice difference, so I'm going to save that for a video about Loretta's ending as a whole. Just know the call her bluff has an effect on it, and it makes it a little bit easier. There are many more Gwen and Loretta consequences, but they're based on completely different choices or combination of choices. So definitely subscribe so you can see those videos, get notified when they're available, or maybe they already are. So look maybe over here or over here, depending on where I put them, and I'll see you next time.